In the heart of a relentless winter, deep within the rugged peaks of Frostvale, a remote mountain haven in northern Idaho, Ethan Carter sat alone in his modest log cabin. The night was unforgiving, thick, swirling snow battered the windows, and the wind's howls blended with the creaks of aged timber. Outside, the landscape was transformed into an icy canvas of relentless white, where every flake carried the promise of both isolation and mystery. Ethan had spent countless winters in Frostvale, becoming intimately acquainted with the raw, wild beauty of the mountains. As a wildlife photographer with a deep reverence for nature, he found solace in the untamed environment that surrounded him. Yet tonight, even his seasoned heart felt a twinge of trepidation. He sat in his favorite armchair near the crackling fireplace, its dancing flames casting warm, flickering shadows across walls adorned with photographs of majestic creatures. Memories of lost loved ones and long-forgotten laughter mingled with the soft hum of the winter storm, creating a bittersweet symphony of solitude and hope. In the midst of his reflective reverie, a sound emerged that cut through the relentless wind, a persistent, gentle knock at the door. It was a sound Ethan did not expect on a night when nature seemed determined to keep every living soul sheltered and silent. His heart skipped a beat as he paused, his coffee mug hovering midair. In all his years of living in the wilderness, he had learned that the wild rarely approached human dwellings, especially during such punishing weather. The knock was deliberate, insistent, a plea amid the storm. Curiosity mingled with caution as Ethan rose slowly, wrapping his well-worn flannel robe tighter around him. Each step toward the door felt like a venture into the unknown. Memories of advice from fellow conservationists and seasoned outdoorsmen echoed in his mind: keep your distance, let nature be nature. Yet, tonight, there was something profoundly different about this sound, something that stirred an unfamiliar compassion deep within him. With a measured breath and a cautious hand on the door handle, Ethan swung open the door. The gust of cold air nearly swept him back, but what he saw in the golden glow of the porch light made him forget the chill. There, standing timidly on his welcome mat, was not a fellow human nor a lost traveler, but a creature of the wild, a pregnant bobcat, her tawny fur dusted with a delicate layer of snow. The bobcat's eyes, large and luminous in the dim light, held an expression that seemed almost pleading. Beside her, nestled against her slender body, were two fragile kittens. Their small forms trembled in the bitter wind, their fur clinging to them in uneven patches as if struggling to hold on to life in the harsh cold. The sight was so unexpected and moving that Ethan felt his pulse quicken in both awe and concern. In that brief moment, the boundaries between man and nature blurred into a single, shared vulnerability. For a heartbeat, time seemed to slow as Ethan locked eyes with the bobcat. In that silent exchange, he sensed an indescribable plea, not for danger or conflict, but for sanctuary and care. The wild had sent an emissary, and this gentle creature, in her quiet, dignified way, was asking for help. Every instinct he had honed over years in these mountains urged him to be cautious, yet his heart overrode his hesitation. "Come in," he murmured softly, his voice betraying both warmth and a hint of uncertainty. The bobcat paused as if considering his words, then slowly stepped forward. With a grace that belied her apparent frailty, she padded across the threshold, her every movement a careful, deliberate act of trust. The kittens, though visibly shivering, followed suit, their tiny paws leaving fleeting imprints on the worn rug of his entryway. The scene was surreal, an intimate tableau of vulnerability, resilience, and an unspoken bond between the wild and the human world. Ethan shut the door against the howling storm, creating a small sanctuary within his humble home. He watched, fascinated, as the bobcat moved cautiously into the warmth of the cabin. The creature's eyes flitted around, absorbing every detail of this unexpected refuge, while her kittens huddled close, seeking the comfort of both their mother and the newfound shelter. The soft crackle of the fireplace, the gentle tick of the old clock on the wall, and the muted whispers of the winter wind outside all blended into a serene counterpoint to the extraordinary scene unfolding before him. Ethan shut the door against the howling storm, creating a small sanctuary within his humble home. He watched, fascinated, as the bobcat moved cautiously into the warmth of the cabin. The creature's eyes flitted around, absorbing every detail of this unexpected refuge, while her kittens huddled close, seeking the comfort of both their mother and the newfound shelter. The soft crackle of the fireplace, the gentle tick of the old clock on the wall, and the muted whispers of the winter wind outside all blended into a serene counterpoint to the extraordinary scene unfolding before him. Inside, the cabin was a reflection of Ethan's soul, an eclectic mix of rugged practicality and tender sentimentality. Photographs of majestic landscapes and elusive wildlife lined the walls, each image a story, a memory captured in time. Tonight, however, the focus shifted from the distant, framed moments of nature to a live, unfolding narrative right at his doorstep. Every detail, the glisten of frost on the bobcat's fur, the tentative steps of her kittens, and the cautious, almost regal way she carried herself, spoke volumes of a life marked by the harsh realities of the wild, yet softened by the touch of maternal love. Ethan's heart swelled with a mixture of empathy and responsibility. He knew that such an encounter was a rare gift, a moment where nature sought not to intimidate but to communicate, to bridge the chasm between survival and compassion. The bobcat's presence was an invitation, a silent challenge to embrace the unpredictable, to acknowledge that sometimes the wild comes knocking at our doors in its most vulnerable form. For a long while, he simply stood there, taking in every detail, every sound, the low, almost imperceptible chirrups from the kittens, the soft rustling of the bobcat's fur as she shifted her weight, the rhythmic pounding of his own heartbeat in response. In that instant, all the solitary nights, the endless winters, and the haunting echoes of loss converged into a single, poignant realization. The wild, with all its ferocity and fragility, had chosen him to be a temporary guardian. The bobcat, whom he silently decided to call Aurora, a name inspired by the shimmering, ethereal lights of the northern skies, seemed to acknowledge this unspoken pact as she lingered near him, her gaze steady and profound. Her kittens, barely clinging to life in the cold, looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes, as if imploring him to be their beacon of hope amid the encroaching darkness. Ethan led Aurora and her little ones to the living room, where the hearth's gentle glow bathed everything in a soft, welcoming light. He placed a few blankets on the floor, creating a makeshift nest that would shield them from the biting cold. As the family settled, a fragile peace enveloped the room. The bobcat moved with a careful dignity, ensuring her kittens were comfortable before taking a moment to survey their new surroundings. Her presence, regal yet tender, imbued the space with a quiet magic, an unspoken promise of trust and healing. Sitting down in his favorite armchair, Ethan felt the weight of the world momentarily lift from his shoulders. In that gentle companionship, the loneliness of his isolated existence melted away, replaced by a profound connection that transcended the boundaries of species. Every flicker of Aurora's eyes, every tentative purr from her kittens, resonated with the raw beauty of life in its most unguarded form. For Ethan, this was not merely a random occurrence, it was a miracle wrapped in fur, a living reminder that even in the harshest conditions, life finds a way to reach out, to ask for help, and to bestow unexpected gifts. The storm raged outside, but within the warm confines of the cabin, a new story was being written, a tale of trust, resilience, and the quiet power of compassion. As the minutes turned into hours, Ethan found himself captivated not only by the physical presence of Aurora and her kittens but by the deeper, symbolic significance of their arrival. Their unplanned intrusion was a reminder that the wild, in all its unpredictable splendor, often communicates in the most subtle, heartfelt ways. It urged him to look beyond fear and caution, to embrace the vulnerability that lay at the intersection of human and nature. With the storm still howling in the distance, Ethan reached out a gentle hand towards Aurora. She responded with a tentative, almost human-like blink of her golden eyes, a silent affirmation of the bond that was forming between them. In that fleeting moment, the cabin transformed into a haven of shared understanding, where words were unnecessary and every heartbeat echoed the unspoken language of empathy. As the night deepened, the soft murmurs of the wind blended with the occasional purrs and chirps from the little family. Ethan knew that this encounter, unexpected as it was, might alter the course of his life. It was a reminder that nature, with all its raw power and delicate grace, could be both a fierce adversary and a gentle savior. The bobcat and her kittens had arrived unannounced, seeking refuge, and in doing so, had opened a door not only to his cabin but to a part of his soul that had long been dormant. Before the first light of dawn crept through the frost-laden windows, Ethan sat in silent contemplation. The warmth of the fire, the quiet presence of Aurora and her little ones, and the endless expanse of the winter night had woven together a tapestry of emotions that was as profound as it was unexpected. In that fragile moment of unity, he felt both the weight of his own solitude and the immense, healing power of connection, a connection that transcended the ordinary, bridging the divide between human and wild with nothing more than trust and a shared need for sanctuary. As the minutes passed, the storm outside began to relent, and the first hints of a pale winter dawn appeared in the distance. But the memory of that extraordinary encounter would linger long after the snow had melted and the winds had died down. Ethan knew that the wild had a way of leaving its mark, an indelible impression on those who were brave enough to listen to its quiet, desperate call. Now, as the cabin settled into a calm, almost reverent silence, Ethan couldn't help but wonder what new chapters lay ahead in this unpredictable narrative of life. The night had taught him that sometimes the most profound connections are forged in the unlikeliest moments, when the wild knocks at your door in search of sanctuary. And as he gazed at Aurora, so gentle, so brave, so undeniably alive, he silently vowed to honor this gift, to protect it and to cherish the fragile beauty of a bond that defied all boundaries. Before closing his eyes to the soft, lingering echoes of the night, Ethan took a moment to reflect on the wonder of it all. He thought about the delicate interplay between nature's raw force and the tender resilience of life. In that shared silence, he knew that the wild had spoken to him in a language older than time, a language of trust, of survival, and of unconditional hope. And so, as the first rays of sunlight began to push away the remnants of the storm, Ethan whispered a quiet promise to himself and to the wild soul before him, that he would always keep his door open, not just to the unexpected visitors of the night, but to the mysteries and miracles that the natural world so generously offered. What would you do if, on a bitter winter's night, a gentle call from the wild reached your door? Would you dare to open it, embracing the unknown and the possibility of a connection that could change your life forever? As the first light of dawn filtered through the frost-laden windows of Ethan Carter's cozy cabin in Frostvale, a new day began with a quiet promise. The storm had subsided, leaving behind a landscape transformed into a glistening winter wonderland. Outside, the snow lay undisturbed and sparkling, as if nature had paused to catch its breath. Inside, the soft glow of the early morning sun mingled with the lingering warmth of last night's fire, casting long shadows that danced across the wooden floor. Ethan awoke slowly, the memories of the previous night's extraordinary encounter with the wild still vivid in his mind. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes and shuffled toward the living room, where Aurora, the gentle, pregnant bobcat, and her two fragile kittens had spent the night in silent, respectful companionship. The family had settled quietly near the hearth, their presence an unspoken invitation to a day of shared solace. Sitting down at a small wooden table by the window, Ethan picked up his well-worn camera and a notepad. Today, he was determined to capture every tender moment of this fragile coexistence. With practiced eyes, he observed Aurora as she stretched languidly, her tawny fur catching the light in hues of gold and amber. The kittens, still half asleep, nestled closely against her side. Their soft, rhythmic purrs provided a soothing counterpoint to the delicate creaks of the cabin as it warmed under the morning sun. In that quiet moment, Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of connection. His heart, once burdened by solitude and the echoes of loss, now resonated with a newfound hope. Each glance exchanged with Aurora was a silent conversation, a mutual acknowledgement of vulnerability and trust. As he carefully adjusted the focus of his camera, he captured the gentle way in which Aurora groomed her kittens, her movements both graceful and instinctively protective. Determined to nurture this rare bond, Ethan prepared a modest breakfast. He moved quietly through the cabin, gathering a few pieces of venison he had stored from last season's hunt. With gentle care, he warmed the food and set a small bowl on a low table near the window. Outside, he arranged a few fresh blankets and a shallow dish of water just beyond the open door, creating a comfortable nook that invited the wild creatures to venture out at their own pace. Aurora, initially cautious, stepped slowly toward the doorway. Her golden eyes flickered with curiosity as she surveyed the outdoor offering. One of her kittens, more adventurous than the other, took a tentative step forward, sniffing the cool morning air and the subtle scent of food. The other kitten, content to remain close to its mother, watched with wide, trusting eyes. The scene was a delicate ballet of caution and curiosity, a silent, yet profound, negotiation of trust between the human and the wild. As the morning unfolded, the cabin transformed into a sanctuary where the boundaries between the familiar and the untamed began to blur. Ethan found himself moving with a quiet reverence around the bobcat family, careful not to startle them. He spoke softly, his words more like murmurs of encouragement than commands, ensuring that every action conveyed respect for their wild nature. Every gentle touch, every careful placement of food, was a testament to his deep-seated belief that even the wildest creatures could find sanctuary when offered kindness. The bobcat family slowly began to adapt to their new surroundings. Aurora's once wary gaze softened as she recognized the consistency and warmth in Ethan's care. She would occasionally brush her muzzle against his hand in a gesture that seemed both tentative and profoundly grateful. Her kittens, now more lively and curious, started to explore the cabin with playful abandon. Their small paws patted lightly over the hardwood floor, leaving transient traces that soon disappeared into the quiet hum of the day. Ethan's mind wandered to memories of his late wife, Sarah, her laughter, her unwavering kindness, and the gentle way she had once brought light to his darkest days. In that quiet companionship with Aurora and her kittens, he found echoes of a past filled with love and warmth. The presence of these wild souls rekindled in him a sense of purpose and connection that he had long thought lost. As he scribbled notes into his journal, he marveled at how life, in its most unexpected forms, could gently heal the deepest wounds. Throughout the day, time seemed to stretch and contract in a delicate dance. The soft chirrups of the kittens, the rhythmic purrs of Aurora, and the gentle murmur of the wind created an almost musical backdrop to this intimate scene. Ethan's camera clicked intermittently, capturing fleeting moments, a glint of sunlight in Aurora's eyes, the playful tumble of a kitten chasing a stray snowflake drifting in from the open door, the serene stillness that fell over the room as the family rested in quiet unity. In the midst of these tender moments, Ethan's thoughts turned to the inevitable future. He knew that the bond he was nurturing with Aurora's family was delicate and ephemeral. The wild, by its very nature, was meant to roam free, to exist in a realm unbound by the comforts of human shelter. Yet, for now, the shared warmth of the cabin offered a temporary refuge, a rare pause in the relentless rhythm of nature. Motivated by both practicality and compassion, Ethan decided to create an outdoor enclosure adjacent to his cabin. He envisioned a space that would allow Aurora and her kittens to experience the freedom of the wild while remaining under the gentle care of his watchful eye. With careful deliberation, he gathered sturdy logs, old furniture remnants, and local materials to craft a small yet secure area. Every nail, every board, was positioned with the utmost respect for the natural instincts of his temporary guests. As he worked, Ethan's thoughts meandered between the tangible and the abstract. He recalled the bittersweet lessons of solitude and the healing that comes from unexpected encounters. The act of building the enclosure was both a practical necessity and a symbolic gesture, a physical representation of his desire to honor the wild spirit of Aurora and her kittens while gently guiding them toward a future that respected their intrinsic need for freedom. By midday, the enclosure was complete. Ethan stepped back to admire his handiwork, a modest, open space bordered by natural logs and patches of soft earth, designed to mimic a part of the forest. He gently coaxed Aurora toward the new area, and to his delight, she hesitated only briefly before venturing out. Her kittens, ever curious, followed in a clumsy yet endearing procession. The outdoor space, bathed in the soft glow of the afternoon sun, became a temporary playground where the boundaries between domestication and wildness blurred into something beautifully harmonious. Under the clear blue sky, the bobcat family began to explore their new domain. Aurora moved with a measured grace, her eyes always alert for both the wonders and the potential perils of the world beyond the cabin's safety. The kittens, filled with youthful exuberance, frolicked around, chasing each other and pouncing on the shadows that danced across the snow. Ethan watched with a heart full of gratitude and a touch of melancholy. He knew that each joyous moment was a fleeting interlude, a chapter in a story that might soon require a heartfelt farewell. As the day wore on, the interplay of light and shadow created a mesmerizing tapestry over the landscape. Ethan found himself seated on a weathered bench near the enclosure, his camera resting on his lap as he reflected on the delicate balance between freedom and care. The bobcat family had not only transformed his cabin into a haven of life and warmth but had also reawakened in him a sense of wonder that he feared was lost to the passing years. With each passing hour, the bond between man and wild deepened, woven together by acts of silent understanding and shared resilience. In quiet moments, as Aurora rested in the dappled sunlight and her kittens napped in playful clusters, Ethan's thoughts turned philosophical. He pondered the nature of trust and the fragile interdependence between humans and the wild. Life, he realized, was a series of unexpected encounters, each one an opportunity to rewrite the narrative of solitude into one of connection, compassion, and mutual respect. It was in these quiet, unassuming moments that the true essence of existence revealed itself. Ethan began to document his evolving experience in greater detail. He recorded observations of Aurora's behavior, the subtle shift in her eyes when she looked his way, the tender way she nuzzled her kittens, and the gentle rhythm of her breaths as she lay in repose. He noted the playful antics of the kittens. One of them, with a distinctive patch on its ear, would dart around the enclosure with a boundless curiosity, while the other, more reserved, preferred to linger close to its mother. Each detail was a brushstroke in the vibrant portrait of a family that had unexpectedly chosen his home as their sanctuary. By the late afternoon, as the sun began its slow descent behind the towering peaks of Frost Vale, Ethan felt a profound shift within himself. The once lonely days now pulsed with the vibrant energy of life, of connections forged in the crucible of shared vulnerability. The warmth of the enclosure, the gentle play of light on soft fur, and the quiet symphony of nature's sounds had all conspired to heal old wounds and kindle a deep sense of belonging. Sitting quietly on his bench, Ethan penned a few reflective lines in his journal. He wrote of how the delicate interactions between himself and Aurora's family reminded him that sometimes, the wild finds a way not only to survive but to thrive when nurtured with care. In those moments of pure, unadulterated beauty, the world seemed to whisper that no matter how harsh the winter, or how deep the solitude, life would always find a path to bloom again. As twilight approached and the sky transformed into a canvas of soft pastels, Ethan looked over at the enclosure with a bittersweet smile. He knew that while the bond he was cultivating with Aurora and her kittens was a temporary gift, its impact would linger long after the time had come for them to return to their natural realm. The thought of eventual parting filled him with a tender melancholy, yet he cherished every moment of this intimate cohabitation as a reminder of nature's enduring capacity to heal and inspire. In the gentle glow of the fading day, Ethan's thoughts turned to the future. He wondered how these moments of unexpected connection might ripple outward, reshaping his perceptions of the wild and the self. The delicate interplay of trust, care, and the inevitability of change filled him with both hope and a quiet resolve to honor the natural world with every fiber of his being. Before the last vestiges of daylight melted away into a starry night, Ethan closed his journal, his heart full yet wistful. The gentle cohabitation with Aurora and her kittens had transformed his solitary existence into a living tapestry of shared moments, where the boundaries between the human and the wild blurred into an exquisite dance of mutual respect. In that transformative day, he had rediscovered the joy of connection, a truth that would forever change the way he saw the world. What would you do if, on a bitter winter's night, a gentle call from the wild reached your door? Would you dare to open it, embracing the unknown and the possibility of a connection that could change your life forever?